Have you ever noticed how a child can spend hours trying to stack blocks, failing again and again, yet never once stops to question whether they are good enough at stacking blocks? They don't journal about their block stacking inadequacy. They don't watch YouTube videos titled, "Am I a block stacking failure?" They just stack another block. And yet somewhere between childhood and now, you learned to see failure differently. You learned that struggling means you are not talented. That needing multiple attempts means you are behind. That slow progress is shameful progress. There's something strange about how we approach learning as adults. We've convinced ourselves that mastery should feel effortless, that talent is innate, that if something doesn't come naturally, maybe it's just not our thing. But what if the real secret to learning anything quickly isn't about finding your natural talent? It's about unlearning everything you've been taught about how learning works. Let me tell you about a Japanese concept that's been hiding in plain sight for over 400 years. It's called Kaizen. And if you truly understand it, not the corporate motivational poster version, but the real psychological architecture beneath it, you'll never struggle to learn anything again. The method that feels too small to work. Here's the truth. You've probably heard of Kaizen before. Continuous improvement. Small steps. 1% better every day. And you probably dismissed it. Because in a world of crash courses and 30-day transformations and learn to code in a weekend bootcamps, the idea of getting microscopically better feels almost insulting. It feels like settling. Like giving up on ever being truly great. But here's what's fascinating. The reason Kaizen works has nothing to do with motivation. It has everything to do with how your brain physically changes when you learn, and why you've been sabotaging that process without realizing it. Let me paint you a picture. You decide you want to learn something new. Guitar, let's say. You are excited. You buy the guitar, you set aside 2 hours, you pull up a tutorial, and you dive in. Your fingers hurt. The chord sounds muddy. You can't switch between positions without that awkward pause. But you push through because you are committed, right? This is what learning requires. Discipline. Effort. Powering through the discomfort. After 2 hours, your fingers are throbbing. You are frustrated. You've made some progress, but it feels inadequate. You want it to feel like a guitarist. Instead, you feel like someone torturing a guitar. You tell yourself you'll practice tomorrow. Same time, same intensity. But tomorrow comes, and suddenly you remember an email you need to send. A chore that can't wait. Your fingers are still sore anyway. Maybe you should let them recover. 3 days later, the guitar is in the corner. 3 weeks later, it's a coat rack. 3 months later, it's a symbol of your inability to stick with things. Sound familiar? But here's the thing. This isn't a failure of discipline. This isn't proof that you lack commitment or passion or whatever else you've been telling yourself. This is your brain's threat detection system working exactly as designed. See, your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for processing threats, doesn't distinguish between physical danger and psychological discomfort. When you push yourself into 2 hours of frustrating practice, when you deliberately choose struggle and strain, your brain codes this as a threat experience. And what does your brain do with threat experiences? It avoids them. This is where it gets complex. Because you've been taught that real learning requires pain. No pain, no gain. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Push past your limits. But here's what neuroscience tells us. Learning doesn't actually happen during the strain. Learning happens during consolidation, when your brain is relaxed enough to process and rewire. When you're in threat mode, you are not in learning mode. You are in survival mode. The psychology behind this runs deeper than most people realize. Why your brain rejects big changes. There's a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's responsible for executive function, planning, decision-making, rational thought. It's the part of you that sets goals and means them. But the prefrontal cortex is expensive to run. It consumes massive amounts of glucose. It's energetically costly. So your brain has developed an elegant solution: automation. Anything you do repeatedly gets transferred from the prefrontal cortex to the basal ganglia, where it becomes a habit, an automatic behavior that runs with minimal energy expenditure. This is beautiful when it works in your favor. It's why you can drive home on autopilot while thinking about dinner. It's why you can type without looking at the keyboard. It's why you can hold a conversation while walking. But here's what's really happening. Your brain is constantly seeking equilibrium. Homeostasis. It wants to conserve energy, minimize threats, and keep you in familiar patterns. When you try to implement massive change, 2 hours of daily practice, complete routine overhauls, this time it's different, declarations, your brain perceives this as a threat to homeostasis. And it fights back. You know this feeling. The resistance. The sudden lack of motivation. The way discipline seems to evaporate right when you need it most. This isn't weakness. This is your brain trying to protect you from what it perceives as dangerous deviation from survival patterns. And this is where Kaizen becomes not just helpful, but revelatory. The 1-minute revolution. The traditional understanding of Kaizen is continuous improvement through small changes. But that's like describing music as organized sound. Technically accurate, completely missing the point. The real power of Kaizen isn't in the improvement. It's in bypassing your brain's threat detection system entirely. Here's the method, and I want you to really hear this. When you want to learn something new, you commit to practicing for exactly 1 minute per day. Not, at least 1 minute. Not, 1 minute to start, then more if you feel like it. Exactly 1 minute. Then you stop. Your first reaction is probably resistance. 1 minute? That's nothing. That's not enough to make progress. That's not even worth setting up for. And that resistance, that exact voice telling you it's not enough, is the same mechanism that's been sabotaging you all along. But here's the truth, that voice isn't trying to motivate you. It's trying to maintain homeostasis by convincing you that anything less than heroic effort isn't worth doing at all. Let me tell you what happens when you actually do this. Day 1. You pick up the guitar for 1 minute. You play a single chord. It sounds bad. You put the guitar down. It feels ridiculous. Almost insulting. Day 2. 1 minute. Same chord. Still sounds bad. But something's different. Your fingers remember where to go, just slightly faster than yesterday. Day 3. 1 minute. The chord sounds marginally less terrible. You notice your hand position has naturally corrected something you weren't even consciously aware of. Day 7. You are annoyed that you have to stop at 1 minute. The guitar doesn't feel like a threat anymore. It feels like an unfinished conversation. Day 14. You played for 1 minute, but then you kept thinking about it. You noticed your fingers moving in the chord shape while you were washing dishes. Your brain is processing this in the background now. Day 30. The 1-minute practice feels automatic. You don't have to convince yourself. You don't have to muster discipline. It's just something you do, like brushing your teeth. Music. And this is where it gets interesting. What's really happening in your brain? When you practice for just 1 minute, you are doing something remarkable. You are teaching your brain that this activity is not a threat. You are showing it that learning can happen in a state of safety and calm. Research in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections, shows that repetition in a relaxed state is exponentially more effective than intensive practice in a stressed state. Every time you practice, your brain strengthens the neural pathways associated with that skill. But here's the crucial part. The strengthening happens primarily during rest periods, during sleep, during the times when you are not actively practicing. When you do 2-hour marathon sessions, you are overwhelming your brain's capacity to process and consolidate. You are creating associative memories of strain and frustration. You are actually training your brain that this activity equals discomfort. But when you practice for 1 minute, just long enough to activate the neural pathways, not long enough to trigger threat response, you are creating ideal conditions for consolidation. Your brain processes this as safe repetition. It begins automating the patterns. It starts running simulations in the background. You start noticing things about your skill in moments when you are not even practicing. This is how children learn languages. Not through discipline and structured study, but through safe, repeated exposure that never triggers the threat response. The psychology behind this runs even deeper. The hidden cost of motivation. Here's something nobody tells you about motivation. It's a terrible foundation for sustainable behavior change. Motivation is an emotional state. It's temporary. It's unreliable. It's highest when you start something new, right when your skill level is lowest and the gap between where you are and where you want to be is most painful. You know what happens when you build a learning practice on motivation? You practice when you feel motivated. Which means you practice inconsistently. Which means you never build the neural pathways required for automaticity. Which means you rely even more on motivation because the behavior never becomes automatic. It's a doom loop disguised as inspiration. But here's what's fascinating. When you commit to 1 minute, you remove motivation from the equation entirely. 1 minute doesn't require motivation. It's so small that it bypasses the need for emotional fuel. You can practice when you are tired, when you are stressed, when you are not feeling it. Because you are not asking yourself to feel anything. You are just asking yourself to do something so small that your brain doesn't bother resisting. And in that space, that tiny gap between not worth resisting and small enough to be effortless, real change happens. But here's what you are really afraid of. Let's be honest about what's actually stopping you from trying this. It's not that you don't believe 1 minute can help. Deep down, you probably do. What you are really afraid of is that 1 minute is all you'll ever do. That if you give yourself permission to do the bare minimum, you'll never push yourself to do more. That this is just another form of settling, of accepting mediocrity, of giving up on ever being truly exceptional. You are afraid that the voice that says, 1 minute isn't enough, is actually protecting you from complacency. But here's the truth, that voice has never protected you. It's sabotaged you over and over. It's convinced you that if you can't do it perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. It's turned every new interest into a referendum on your worth. It's made learning feel like evidence gathering for your inadequacy. And maybe that's the real reason Kaizen feels uncomfortable. Not because it's too small, but because it requires you to let go of the story that your value comes from exceptional effort and instant results. Music. Let me tell you what actually happens when you let yourself start with 1 minute. The compound effect you can't see. Week 1 feels absurd. Week 2 feels almost insulting in its simplicity. Week 3 is when something shifts. You are not just getting better at the skill. You are getting better at learning. You are building what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief in your own capability. Not through affirmations or positive thinking, but through accumulated evidence that you can do what you say you'll do. Every day you practice for 1 minute, you are proving to yourself that you follow through, that you are consistent, that you are capable of change. This might sound small, but here's what research shows. Self-efficacy is the single strongest predictor of success in any endeavor. Stronger than talent. Stronger than resources. Stronger than initial skill level. And you can't build self-efficacy through grand gestures and heroic efforts. You build it through reliable, repeated proof that you do what you commit to. 1 minute per day for 90 days is 90 consecutive moments of follow-through. 90 pieces of evidence that you are the kind of person who does what they say they'll do. That changes everything. But the truth is, something even more profound is happening. What you are actually mastering. You picked up this video because you want to learn something fast. Guitar, Spanish, programming, drawing, whatever it is. But here's what Kaizen actually teaches you. You are not learning a skill. You are learning how to be someone who learns. You are discovering that consistency beats intensity. That small, repeated actions compound into capabilities that would seem impossible from the outside. That your brain is far more adaptable than you've been taught. You are learning that you don't have to feel motivated to take action. That discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do things you hate, it's about designing behaviors so small that resistance never forms. You are proving to yourself that learning doesn't have to feel like suffering. That growth can be gentle. That you can become exceptional without ever pushing yourself to the point of burnout. And maybe that's the real skill worth mastering. Music. The question you should be asking. So here's what I want you to consider. What would happen if you stopped waiting to feel ready? If you stopped needing the perfect plan, the right resources, the ideal conditions? What if you just committed to 1 minute today? Not 1 minute as a stepping stone to something bigger. 1 minute as a complete practice in itself. 1 minute as proof that you can be gentle with yourself while still moving forward. Because here's what's really happening. Right now, you are at a fork. One path is the familiar one, the one where you wait for motivation, plan the perfect approach, promise yourself that this time will be different, then watch yourself fall back into old patterns. The other path is almost embarrassingly simple. Pick the thing you want to learn. Do it for 1 minute today. Then do it for 1 minute tomorrow. Then the next day. And the next. No heroics. No transformation promises. No, new you. Just 1 minute. Then another. Then another. The uncomfortable truth about mastery. You know what's fascinating about people who are exceptional at something? When you talk to them, they rarely describe intense practice sessions or breakthrough moments. They describe showing up. Repeatedly. Over years. The guitarist who seems naturally talented? They've held a guitar for a few minutes almost every day for a decade. The programmer who makes it look effortless? They've written code in small chunks, consistently, while everyone else was waiting to find time for marathon sessions. Mastery isn't a destination you arrive at through suffering. It's a byproduct of sustainable, consistent practice that your brain doesn't perceive as threatening. And the beautiful thing? You can start building that today. Right now. For 1 minute. Here's my invitation to you. For the next 30 days, practice something for exactly 1 minute per day. Set a timer. When it goes off, stop, even if you want to continue. Watch what happens. Not just to your skill, but to your relationship with learning itself. Notice how the resistance fades. How the behavior becomes automatic. How you start catching yourself thinking about your practice during the day. Notice how you stop needing to feel motivated. How the question stops being, "Do I feel like practicing?" and becomes simply, "When today will I do my minute?" And notice, really notice, how you start to trust yourself differently. How you become someone who follows through, not through willpower, but through design. Because that child stacking blocks never needed motivation. They just needed repetition without threat, practice without judgment, growth without the story that struggling means failing. You already know how to learn like that. You just forgot. Kaizen isn't teaching you something new, it's reminding you of what you knew before someone taught you that learning had to hurt to count. So maybe the question isn't, will 1 minute really make a difference? Maybe the question is, what am I really protecting by convincing myself that small steps don't matter? You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You don't need to wait until you are ready. You need 1 minute. Today. Then tomorrow. Then the day after that. Everything else will follow. The guitar is waiting. The language is waiting. The skill you've been putting off is waiting. Not for you to be ready. Not for you to have a perfect plan. Just for you to begin. 1 minute at a time.